Welcome to the Data Room, where we demystify go-to-market data for financially strategic execs. We deliver real-world guidance for finance and go-to-market teams, helping them collaborate to transform their data into a strategic asset. I'm Scott Stauffer, CEO and founder at Scale Matters. I've been a CEO for over 30 years at various tech and SaaS companies, and I've seen firsthand the power of using data and data modeling to understand what drives value creation in a business. Hi, folks. I'm Scott Stauffer, co-founder and CEO of Scale Matters, and welcome to another episode in our webinar series called Bridging the Gap Between Finance and Go-to-Market, where we're essentially trying to provide some thoughtful content that helps to create alignment between finance leaders and revenue leaders. Before we jump into it, just a short note on Scale Matters. So revenue and finance leaders come to Scale Matters when they're really struggling to answer important questions like, I don't know, what is the relative ROI of the different channels we're using to source prospects? Or maybe what is the root cause of our recently declining win rate? Or is my sales team properly sized, right, in relation to the top of funnel investments we're making? In almost all cases, their company's go-to-market data posture is not set up to help them answer these key business questions. And that's where we help. We define a data strategy. We help them properly instrument their environment. We implement processes to maximize data hygiene. And then we deliver actionable insights to inform their decision making. Our work often fundamentally changes the way our customers operate their business, essentially taking the guesswork out of the equation. So that's the quick ad on Scale Matters. If that sounds like it resonates or you need any help with that sort of stuff, please reach out. Today's guest is Sangram Vajre. He's the CEO and co-founder of Go-to-Market Partners, GTM Partners. They are a very highly respected, data-focused go-to-market advisory firm. Part of the reason they're highly respected is because of the immense experience that Sangram has in all things go-to-market. Prior to founding GTM Partners, he was a co-founder and the original CMO and then chief evangelist of Terminus. Before that, he was CMO of Pardot prior to its sale to ExactTarget and eventually Salesforce. Sangram, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Scott. I'm excited. I have watched your journey from afar for the last few years, and as you have pivoted in your business and the market has changed, I think you guys have been doing some really good work. So excited to share some of our research and excited to hear your thoughts as you go through it.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So, amongst other things, and I think what we'll do is we'll break this into a couple sections around different topics that you guys have been stressing out there. Amongst other things, you and your colleagues at Go-to-Market Partners have developed two very important concepts or frameworks. The first is around the natural growth stages a business must go through based on the 3 Ps. And secondly, the concept of the go-to-market operating system. So the first framework is around these growth stages, and the second is around the go-to-market operating system. And what I'd like to do is have you walk through each of those. Let's start by having you kind of walk us through the growth stages, the natural growth stages, and kind of how you arrived.
Yeah. And one of the things, and I'll quickly share the slide as people can think through this. The stages are very simple: problem, product, platform, market fit. But there is immense research went into figuring this thing out because most people are aware of product market fit, and that's what people talk about. But when Brian and I wrote the book Move, which literally birthed this framework, we interviewed Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm too, and then Scott Dorsey, like as you mentioned, ExactTarget, that sold ExactTarget for $2.7 billion, and over 100 PE firms, CEOs, CROs, all of it, and ask a very basic question. Like really, there were 51 questions, but here were the two basic questions that gives into the mindset of this. We asked, who owns go-to-market, and how do you define go-to-market? And I would challenge everybody to kind of really spend time thinking through it. And every time I've spoken at events in person and I will be in a room and like have raise your hand and who owns go-to-market. And I'll give you a quick story on that one that connects to the three P's, which will put that in perspective. The one part of that is that every CEO, without even blinking an eye, said, "I own it." Every CEO. And when I talk to their CMO or a CRO, I'm not going to name names here and companies here. Uh, they were confused. They didn't know who owns it. They thought they own it or they own part of it or something. And there literally lies the whole issue that we all struggle with in go to market, because if you don't even know who owns it, much less how do you define it, no wonder we all are having go to market issues.
So with the who owns it, and you said that all the CEOs raised their hand. Do you see that changing in these various stages of growth, or maybe the CEO will still claim to own it, but he or she has actual other people doing the
Yes.
work? Talk to us about that a little.
Oh, totally. You would see this. So the classic one was Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot for the longest time, and even Yamini would say the same thing. Who's now the CEO of HubSpot. When we interviewed companies across all these three stages, problem market is, as we all know, it's really the search of the where the big is the problem big enough? Am I going to be able to sell? You're still in it, and the reason it's interesting is, and the reason we use the word problem market is because you have to figure out the market is big enough. That is the classic. So Brian Halligan, when we interviewed for this book and came up with this, he said, well, at that time it was him and Dharmesh. They own every part of go to market, right? They were coming up with ideas. They were coming up with every single thing. And at that time, when you define go to market, is like, oh, we should go with marketing. No, we should try to sell sales. No, we should sell owners. We all this confusion because you're trying to figure it out. So at that time, it's very easy to have a founder led go to market ownership around it. Typically, that's what happens. Product market fit is when it becomes interesting, because, and the reason it's a squiggly line is because when companies transition, our research shows, from one stage to another, there's a natural dip in the business. Most people don't know that it's going to happen, and they don't know how to navigate, and they get scared and they revert back to the old way. So, for example, if you are moving from, let's say, a tech business to become a services business, or all of a sudden you have one product and you have another product that you're adding in, what will naturally happen is it's going to break everything in their business. But it essentially also means that you're getting ready for the next stage of the business. My son is in tennis, and they teach him like, hey, before you hit the ball, you have to kind of load, like go low and then load and then hit the ball. So it's almost like you really have to go down, and you have to fix a few things before you can actually explode and go to the next level. So that's where the product market fit. And Brian was like, well, this is where at HubSpot, they tried to figure out, do we go after Mary the marketer and Ollie the owner? They have this two personas. And they figured out that Mary the marketer knew and used the product more than the old Ollie the owner. So they focused on that, and that became a product. And we'll use that as a use case in a little bit. And in platform market fit, this is when it's way more than one product. This is where the most important stat of all, talking about metrics and getting the CFO bought into it, is NRR. Both Brian and Yamini, when I asked them, what is the one metric that keeps you aware now that you're $1 billion company, a publicly traded company, multiple different products, persona, geos, agencies, what is the one metric? And I thought it was a catch. I think she would say, or he would say, well, no, we don't really have one metric. Without blinking an eye again, they said, yeah, NRR. Because when you have net revenue retention close to or over 120%, your business is at a completely different level. That changes the game. So these three stages, the ownership is still at that level, but the way you look at your business does change.
So, a couple things that come to mind. One is, and notwithstanding some of the recent growth curves exhibited by some AI native companies, but in a, let's say, traditional SaaS type world, can you put different buckets of revenue size on these growth stages?
You actually can't. You can't. And here's the reason. And this happened when we did the research 3 years ago, and we just recently finished another research on it. 3 years ago, when we wrote the book and got published, at that time there were $20 million companies that were still in problem market fit. And one would say, well, if you're a $20 million company, you can't really be in problem market fit. Oh, yeah, you can. And I'll give you our own example. When I was running marketing at Pardot, we used to have hooks with different CRMs to do nurturing programs. And one was with Salesforce, and majority of our customers were there. But we also had hooks with three different other CRMs like Sugar CRM and others. And guess what? There were only 5 or 10 customers that actually used those. But it took 80% of our technology resources to make that work. It had the highest amount of support issues, the greatest amount of churn, and the toughest sales and retention strategy. And it actually was dropping our business. So we had to learn that, oh my gosh, we were growing, but we had to cut the type of ICP that didn't really drive our business. And it was hard. It was really hard to say no to customers when you're in a growth at scale at that point. And I think that happens all the time. So there were customers, advisory customers we do have that are 20, 30 million, and they are still, because they're customizing every single time. They haven't left problem market fit just based on revenue. And with AI, yes, you can have companies that can hit like $5, $10 million. We actually have two that we advise that are over 5 million or so, but they're still in problem market fit. Because they haven't hit the first year of churn. And until you hit a churn cycle, Scott, you and I have been long enough to know that your business is only as good as how many customers stay with you, not how many customers you get.
Right, right. That's a very good point. You kind of have criteria here on this slide in search of Selva and the customer. Is there some precise criteria? If I'm the CEO of a company and I'm not sure whether I'm in the first bucket or the second bucket, what are you telling people? How do they understand that better?
Oh, that's a great question, Scott. We have something called as 15 go-to-market problems that we have identified. People can look at our website or GTM Monday. Our research note will have it several times. It really goes through that. But here is where here are some of the common phrases that will help people recognize where they are, and this people might be feeling that in their mind. If you're talking about that, man, I don't know how how to we can market our business, people get it, but we can't sell it. If you're in that, we call it the valley of death, you're typically in a problem market fit because you haven't really figured that part out. If you actually start saying, you know what, I can market it, I can sell it, but I don't know if I can deliver it, you're still in the problem market fit stage because you're still are your promise and delivery is missed in a big way. There's a chasm there. But if you start talking about, well, I can deliver it, we can market, sell, deliver, but you know what, we cannot renew our customers. Now you're in a product market fit, but you haven't really crossed into the platform market fit. And if you can say, well, now we can market, sell, we can productize it, we can deliver it, but we can't expand it. We cannot get to more than one persona. We can actually have not more than one seats or credits or however different pricing models. Then you know you're actually battling for the platform market fit. And in the book, we really go dig into that because the right questions are very important. And one another quick note on this, even the metrics are different. And I know you love that. You love metrics across the board, and you probably see that. So if you are a problem market fit, forget NRR. NRR is not your friend. You're not even thinking about it. You shouldn't be even thinking about that. So there are the best in class metrics actually will hurt you if you start tracking them too early because your business is not going to be having enough data to support any material direction for you. So each stage, you definitely have different metrics and definitely different ownership when you start looking at it.
Would you guys, as part of your work you do with customers, I presume an initial thing is sort of assessing current state and
Right.
sort of putting them in one of these buckets or having them understand that this is the stage of growth you're at. And then do you help them with and here's the stuff you should be doing, the
Yeah.
metrics you should be looking at, et cetera.
Yeah, I think for majority of here's what how we do it. We literally have them do the go-to-market assessment, which is an executive assessment, not a 100-page doc, but literally 3-page thing. They go through a 5-minute thing, but we have them do at the executive level. So every person on the executive team needs to do that. And then we do the first transformation session where we see the assessment and the results of it, and we help them see that the CEO is saying certain things that said that might drive the business in a different direction. The CMO CRO is moving maybe in a different direction because they answered it differently. And for the first time ever, Scott, they actually see all of the responses in a way where they can see the gaps. And that is our very first engage. We never do anything, no matter what people hire for. That's the first thing we do, because here's what we have learned in all of our research and work: business transformation happens in teams. It doesn't happen in silo department. A better marketing team will never build a better business. Better sales team and better compensation model will never build. And I've seen that the hard way at
Yeah.
all the exits. What builds a great business is a great team. And if the executive team is not aligned on as as the lowest possible level of what stage of the business we are really in and where we're trying to go, the rest of it is just chaos.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about alignment, and you're proudly wearing your "Better Together" shirt, swag, which is all about go to market alignment. And I strongly agree that it's absolutely mandatory if you
Yeah.
want to achieve efficient growth. How do you see companies at these different stages addressing kind of the perpetual challenge of aligning go to market?
Oh my gosh. It is the hardest thing. One of our research element was when we did it, we have 175,000 people who read our research every Monday, Scott, and we do a lot of polls and ask people a lot of different things. From last year and a half, the most surprising research element has been when we asked, hey, which of these three things is stopping you from hitting your business goals? Is it the market conditions, which is what we thought would be the first one that people would select? The second one was, is it that you don't have a product market fit? One of these stages is not clear, at least you don't have it. Or is it that you don't have an internal go to market alignment? 70%, Scott, of go to market leaders said, if I only knew where we are going and why we're doing what we're doing, we would hit our numbers. Isn't that crazy? Not the market condition, not that they all are literally saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if we should go after this ICP. I don't know if I have a strategy or a direction, which all points back to alignment. And it sounds fluffy, but it literally is the Achilles heel that's stopping companies, not the market conditions, not the AI stake, none of it. I mean, all of that is, you can fight it. The people are smart. The team members are made up of really, really talented people in most companies. But if the strategy is not aligned, that it's just chaos again.
So let's talk about why this is so prevalent, right? This lack of alignment, because I mean, it drives me crazy the number of times I've seen marketing investing dollars in this direction, sales ignoring whatever comes in from marketing. They're off doing their own stuff. They're bringing in customers that aren't really good ICP fits, and therefore customer success ends up doing unnatural acts trying to hold on to these people. Why is this still such an issue? I mean, at some point, don't we have to, assuming that most of these companies have investors, don't we have to look at boards and investors at some point and say, why do you keep playing the same video over and over again? What's your thought on this thing?
Yeah, it is mind-boggling, yet it is not actually as surprising, because it goes back to the manifesto we wrote, and I mentioned some of these things. So here are the 5 things that we have seen is what's causing all of it. One, the clear lack of ownership by the CEO, who that he or she owns go-to-market. And what that really means is that they make go-to-market decisions. They like it or not, want it or not, they cannot delegate the decision making of go to market. For example, with the way Brian Halligan explained it, who's going to make the go to market decisions between marketing, investment, and sales? That's a CEO level decision. Or we should open an office in EMEA or North America. That's a go to market decision and at the CEO level. Or we should buy a company or build a product. So when you start thinking about go to market is much bigger than a campaign or a product launch, it's actually the way you run business. So once you understand go to market is the business, you actually understand the point of that ownership looks like. And with that comes clarity and vision casting and making sure everybody on the team works. Which brings me to the second one, which is transformation happens in teams. We talked about that. And If the team is not aligned, they don't know where they're going, it doesn't matter. It really is. People are more overworked now than ever before, hitting less goals. The NRR is the North Star. Like, if that's not a metric that you're focused on, you're not focused on the health of the business at all. The fourth one that we look at is that go to market itself is a process, and we call it the transformational process in our book, because it is not a project, or it's not a strategy, or it's not an, hey, let's go offsite and talk through it. That's not go to market. Go to market is a process where you're actually transforming your business on a daily basis. And the last one is that systems are better than goals. Most companies have goals, they don't have systems. They have goals of doubling their revenue by next year. They have goals of doubling their team size or reducing their team size by 50%, whatever the next narrative is.
Yeah.
But what they don't have are systems. These five and the combination of these five is what's causing the real literal issue in the marketplace.
So let's switch gears here for a second. And you guys have this framework you call a GTM operating system.
Yeah.
Can you share with the audience a little bit about that? Define it, kind of, and really interested in how do you put that to use? Because I'm thinking a big benefit of that is to drive alignment, but I want to hear about it in your words.
All right. All right. So you see the slide?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me go back and show this. See, this is a quote that I wanted to share as we talk about that has literally fundamentally changed the way I think. By James Clear, who's one of my favorite books, at Atomic Habits, and he talks about the fact that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. I don't know what it says to you, Scott, but the day I read it, I really said, yeah, that's why everybody has the goal of being fit every year in January, and they don't have a system. And that's why by January 30th, everybody stops doing that. Only 1% do it. Everybody has a goal of reading books. Everybody have a goal of building a business or financially free, but only a few do it. And the difference is not the goals. Everybody has the same goals, is the system around it.
Yes.
So this quote had a profound impact on me of thinking around it, which led to us building what we call the go-to-market operating system. And as you can see, we don't put marketing, sales, CS in buckets because we just don't think. One of the worst thing that we have done is that when we talk about ICP, for example, oh, that's marketing's job. Somebody in marketing should do that. And it's never been worse than making that decision, because it should be an executive team's job in a team setting where you actually decide what you need to go. And yeah, marketing can execute on that, but the sales, the CS, the CEO, the product, they have to make that decision. But typically, oh, ICP come up with persona and all of it and then just present it to us. That's where it kills. So we came up with these 8 pillars as we started to advise companies. And what these 8 pillars are really are 8 questions, to keep it very simple. And every single question in here, what's highlighted is the intentionality behind that question. So, for example, another really bad question that I have asked for about 20 years is, where can we grow? And I thought I'm very smart by asking that question. How, where can we grow? Like, that sounds like a perfectly reasonably good question to ask. And I realized that it actually doesn't make any sense. You can grow in any direction if you actually want to grow. The better question is, where can you grow the most? And what that does it at an executive level, it should invite debate around, well, where's our gross margin? Where do we have the most people actually engaging with us? What kind of ICP or persona really? What geography or what verticals should we be focused on? Is there a point of view that talks to that particular persona better than this? Do we have a product that supports that? These questions are swirling around, but we never ask them because we're not asking the intentional part of this question. Where can we grow the most? We should stack rank our priorities. We should stack rank what we focus on and what not. And we don't do that. So all these 8 questions, I won't go through any question. I'm happy to go anyone that you may want to go through. But these are the 8 questions that all of our work is focused on. And we believe, based on every research and hundreds of advisory work we have done, is if an executive team can be clear, not certain, but clear around answering these 8 questions, they will actually make tremendous progress as a business. They'll actually hit their numbers. But if they are not clear, If you go around in your executive team, hey, answer these 8 questions for me, just one line, just tell me what you think. And if they're not on the same page, when you look at it together, you know you got problems.
And again, you and I talked a little bit before the show about trying to operationalize a lot of these frameworks out there.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get to the heart of how this operating system works to accelerate, let's call it efficient growth as the goal.
Mm,
If you sit with the executive teams, you facilitate these discussions, and you get to where there are clear answers
hmm
to all 8 of these questions. Do those answers sort of by necessity expose a gap between current state and future state? I'm trying to understand how does this process lead to actionability?
Oh, it is a great question. Ah, my gosh. And depending on how much time we have, we can like go dig into it. What this question typically, so we normally would take one pillar at a time because there are framework that forces that level of discussion as opposed to an open-ended question. And then as a group, we debate, and then ultimately, but it doesn't take too long. Like you can actually go through this with a bought in executive team in 1 to 2 sessions, just around it, because you can get faster through it. But then where it hurts and it stops and the execution fails is when they say, well, what now? What do we do now? Now that we have figured out this is where we should be going, what now? And I'll never forget this, Scott. At least in 2 instances, but once very specifically, I can think about it like yesterday, where the CMO said at the end of the session, she said, so you have been, she said to the, looked at the CEO and said, so CEO, you have made me work on a completely different ICP that doesn't drive growth, that doesn't create better customers for us. And I've been spending all my time on this, but based on this exercise, that will never give me us the results. And so we have a conflict here. And the CEO is like, you're right. I didn't think that has actually had such a big downstream impact. I thought you would just figure it out. And that's where it was a moment of candor. It was a moment of frustration. It was a moment of healthy debate. It was a moment of, oh my gosh, we're all spending so much time, money, energy on things that actually don't matter. And part of this exercise is to reduce the number of projects, reduce the number of priorities, reduce the number of ICP, reduce the number of process and workflows, funnels, whatever that people are doing, reduce the number of campaigns, because they can never produce the same results when you focus on 1 or 2 things really, really well. So the execution element then becomes like, okay, now we know we got to go after this, and we got to launch an ABM campaign to focus on that. That's when we would actually recommend, we have a marketplace, we have agencies that are certified in the operating system, and we would recommend an agency to do it. We absolutely believe that there's a rise of services as a software, where we have all these advisory companies that we do advisory with. They don't ask for software anymore, Scott. They ask for, all right, who can help me with this, who can solve this problem for me, who can give me an outcome, and they're happy to pay 10, 20, 30K a month to an agency or to a service enabled technology company that will actually solve and give them outcomes, as opposed to spending 100K with a unknown provider for software, where they need somebody trained on that software internally, so another couple of people, and they have to sign 2-year contract, so that's like a 500,000. So the CFO is looking at that and saying, so why are we doing this again, and who's going to work on it? And so they want people who can do it.
This hits close to home, obviously, Sangram. Scale Matters started as a software company, essentially built a very powerful go-to-market full funnel analytics platform. Went to market. This is 5 or 6 years ago, uh, and realized that nobody had good data. Right, their CRM data was a mess, terrible hygiene, et cetera. So there wasn't data worth analyzing, which caused us to back into becoming effectively a RevOps services
Yeah.
company. That now our focus is really on getting their data strategy, their data instrumentation, and hygiene, so that you have useful data before running it through our software or any other analytics tools. And now, in our latest sort of evolution, we've actually gotten to where they actually just want to know the answers, right? So we built up a whole side of our services arm, which is data kind of FP&A type people that know go to market,
Yeah.
and effectively they're looking at the data and curating that into insights to hand to the leadership team. So I 100% see your service as a software metaphor in play and big time. Just people don't need to learn another tool. They really
Yeah.
don't. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't. And one of I'm going to be speaking at Inbound again this year. This will be the ninth year, but this time is in San Francisco. I don't know if you're coming to that. But one of my big, we did a whole analysis of 100 companies who have over 100% NRR, between 100 and 120% NRR, and in public, private services and different industries. So we did a whole analysis around it, and we applied the GTM OS to it. Here's the big mega trend that we found in all of it, and we believe this is what's going to drive majority of the next 6 months, or 12 months of in the future. The future of work, we believe, is are going to be workflows. That's how people are going to start working. They're not going to try to create, like, you're talking about the wrong way. It's really a workflow of how everybody's thinking about it. Tell me how this works, and there will be a whole workflow that's created, and somebody's going to create these workflows, and that's how the company will work. We believe that the future of product is invisible, in a way, that nobody's going to actually log into a solution to find it. Somebody on the back end might do it, but a CEO of a company with all the LLMs and everything, every company is going to have their own LLM, and they would say, I don't need to have another login password. It's going to
Yeah.
sound like the time when everybody had horses, and Henry Ford rolled on with a four-wheeler, and it was like, what is this? We got horses. They're like, who needs horses?
Yeah.
So people are going to have that moment where, like, who needs login and password? That sounds so archaic, like the old phones, almost. And
Yeah,
so
I think you're right.
that's would be, and then I think the future of business is going to be some sort of operating system, either this or another way, where you have services working with it, fractionals or agencies that are actually implementing those services to get you that, and AI becomes almost like a part of how you do the work in it. So we believe that these three mega, how you work, how the interfaces are going to change, and then the future of business, all are going to change dramatically for all of us, which I think is better for businesses. And if businesses do better, we all will do better.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, so let's dig into just a couple of these questions.
Yeah.
Again, I'm always big on alignment. The upper left question: how do you give your team clarity, alignment, and trust? Give me some examples
Yeah.
of common answers you might get
Yeah.
when you guys ask those questions.
So we would ask, like, what do you call your sales and marketing team meeting? And they would say, we call it the sales and marketing alignment meeting. And we are like, you should stop doing that, because every time you do that, that is killing. For example, if somebody comes to a pipeline meeting, guess what? The pipe person in the sales team is miserable. They're thinking that their job is on the line, and they're now going to defend their number and all of it. We're actually using the words do have the power of life and death. So what you say, how you say, really does matter. So we the first thing we would look at, like, how do you do it? How often do you meet? Most companies don't meet as a go-to-market team on a weekly basis. And that would include a marketing, sales, customer success. The CEO has to be in it. A product person is typically never there in the room to make go-to-market decisions. They're always the last person to find out what we're doing, which is sad in many companies. And then the ops person, if they have the rev ops or a finance person who actually looks at all of it. So we institute and make sure that everybody has a go-to-market. We call it a go-to-market meeting, so nobody's on the fence and defending themselves. You're actually trying to figure out a business outcomes. That's one. And I'll give you an example of how Henry Shucks, his good friend, you probably know him, the Zoom Info. We went through the whole Zoom Info thing too. Then I did it with, obviously, Yamini at HubSpot. He meets with his executive team, Scott, every day for 1 hour. That was shocking to me. Most CEOs don't do that. He says, look, I'm a public company CEO right now. If my executive team doesn't know how I make decisions, even if I'm don't have a decision, but how I'm thinking, if they don't know, we're going to lose it. So in the last year and a half, he shifted from a weekly meeting to a daily meeting. So every morning, I think at 9 o'clock or something, he would have an executive meeting. Sometimes they would meet the whole hour. Sometimes he would just do like 30 minutes, and it's not a readout. They're all talking about a business issues, and people are coming up with it. And he said that is one change that he made for this particular question of alignment and creating clarity, creating alignment, and creating trust. Because whenever, let's say, he has to let go of people, it's never a surprise. Whenever they have to make a business change or decision, it's never a surprise. Whenever they're acquiring company or launching new, it's never ever a surprise. A week is too long to think about go to market as a business at the executive level. So I have heard, from we meet once a month to only half the people showing up, to somebody like Henry at a publicly traded company meeting every day in order to be aligned and having the executive on the same level. He said that has fast tracked decision making like never before and created trust and transparency like never before.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. We've been advising a lot of our customers to move to a different format. I mean, they have what they might consider a go to market meeting, but then they go through each function. Say
Yeah,
sales reports their metrics, then marketing, and it's still siloed thinking
yeah,
masquerading as alignment, so we've been encouraging them to kind of change the way
raise that.
we think
Yeah,
about it and
yeah,
align to different growth levers and stuff.
yeah.
So we're running short on time. One of the questions here is, which GTM metrics drive your business health? You also mentioned on the three growth stages that you need different metrics at different stages. So whether it's the metrics, I think you guys have an asset called a GTM scorecard
Yeah,
where you identify metrics. So whether it's those metrics or maybe winning by designs, bow tie metrics, a common problem that we see is that folks can say, "This is what I want to track,"
yeah,
but then they don't have the expertise to actually implement the processes and
yeah,
implement the instrumentation to track many of these metrics, especially in those areas where what you want to do crosses over between go to market and finance. So
yeah,
CAC, right? For
yeah,
example,
yeah,
CAC payback, LTV to CAC, they require kind of traditional go to market retention metrics, but also cost data.
yeah.
Um, Most of these companies don't have their act together on that. How do you respond to that? Is that a problem, or is it just life as we know it? What do you?
Well, two for one. People listening can go to my profile in the featured section. We have a whole downloadable assets people download for free on called Go to Market on a Slide, and it has all these scorecards for different stages. People can just download, so they can just go to my profile in the featured section for that. Two, in our experience, the problem is not as much as the having a scorecard or self scorecard. Is problem is having too many scorecards. That is what's killing businesses because everybody's in again defending their business. One of the best thing that we have seen and done, and at Terminus we did that. We had Melody who ran our RevOps at that time. When we hired her, she came in and said, I'm going to run the go to market dashboard from here on. Nobody shows any dashboard anymore in this meeting. Everybody become a business leader running, and you expertise in marketing, sales. You're all business leaders. You all don't need to run reports here in the meeting. And Scott, I can't tell you, I feel like weirdly teary eyes almost because that day we moved from the hour meeting. 40 minutes was about who moved my cheese and where is that data and what number is the right number, to off to in 2 minutes she would just do a summary ahead of time. She had all of it, and the whole meeting was about solving business problems.
Yeah.
It changed everything for us. So man, if people can stop producing dashboards and worried about their job, and it goes back to the CEO making sure everybody feels like this is about business and safe, give it to a one person and let that person not be reporting to any one of those people except the CEO or a CFO. It
Yeah.
changes the outcome and trajectory of your business.
Awesome. Well, listen, Sangram, thanks so much. I've enjoyed catching back up with you again. Always get a lot out of you, the way you think about things, and I appreciate you sharing it with the audience and also sharing all the great thought leadership you guys do out there at GTM.
Man, I love what you all are doing, and I think I love the pivot that you had as a business. I think this is the future, and you're right in the middle of it. So it's awesome. Look forward to connecting more and going deep on it.
Make no mistake, good data matters for driving efficient growth and valuations. Follow me on LinkedIn, where I'm sharing insights from CFOs, investors, and strategic go-to-market execs. Thanks for listening to The Data Room.